Winter in the Illinois country in 1680 was brutal. Rivers froze solid, winds battered the landscape, and for any European expedition, survival meant enduring complete isolation from the outside world. René-Robert Cavelier, Sieur de La Salle, identified this territory as a strategic center for a vast commercial network. His ambition was to monopolize the North American fur trade and navigate the Mississippi River all the way to its mouth. This map illustrates the staggering scale of La Salle's plan, claiming an expanse for France from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. Securing this network required a stronghold here. Forging alliances in the Illinois Territory would create a logistical linchpin. But La Salle's plan rested entirely on the shoulders of a tiny, undersupplied workforce. His grand design demanded flawless execution from men who were barely surviving. Near present-day Peoria, along the Illinois River, La Salle and his men began constructing a stronghold called Fort Crèvecoeur. The project quickly collapsed into a logistical nightmare. That winter, the men were starving, and their vital supply ship, Le Griffon, had vanished without a trace months earlier. Outside the wooden walls, the psychological strain was immense. The region was violently contested during the Beaver Wars, and the French garrison lived in constant dread of an Iroquois raiding party. Inside the fort, the shipbuilders and soldiers had not been paid in 3 years. La Salle routinely treated them as draft animals, forcing them to haul heavy sleighs of his personal cargo through the snow. Desperate for rigging and supplies, La Salle decided to walk 1,000 miles back to Canada on foot in the freezing cold. He left his lieutenant, Henri de Tonty, in command. When La Salle left, he left behind a terrified, unpaid labor force trapped deep in hostile territory. The final trigger occurred on April 15th. Tonty took a scouting party of 5 men upriver to evaluate Starved Rock for a secondary fort, drastically weakening the remaining garrison. The 7 men left behind realized they were completely vulnerable to an Iroquois attack and effectively abandoned by their leadership. The next morning, on April 16th, the men snapped. They broke their contracts with the French crown and mutinied. They raided the storehouse for weapons and furs. Then they systematically dismantled the 40-ton ship they had spent the winter building, painstakingly pulling the iron nails from its timbers. The mutineers were executing a calculated, deliberate dismantling of the imperial machine they had been forced to build. Before fleeing into the woods to seek refuge with local tribes, the deserters left a final statement behind. Scratched deep into the wood of the unfinished ship was a chilling declaration: Nous sommes, tous sauvages. We are all savages. The inscription includes an ambiguous date, the 15th A, 1680. La Salle himself questioned whether the A represented April or August. This page from an early historical record shows the specific phrase, "We are all savages," was documented almost immediately, cementing it in the records of the expedition. The message poses a striking historical question. Were these exhausted men admitting that the wilderness had driven them to madness, or were they declaring their independence from an empire that exploited them? When La Salle finally returned to the site months later, he found nothing but scattered iron, a burned stockade, and that carved message on the hull. To protect his reputation and his commercial monopoly, La Salle's official reports framed the mutineers as malicious traitors who had conspired to ruin him. According to his personal accounts and later texts like this one, the men even tried to poison him before fleeing. But examining bureaucratic records strips away this melodrama. Even the name Crèvecoeur was likely just a mundane reference to a military fortress in the Netherlands. The legal deposition of captured mutineer Moise Hilleret frames the event as a labor strike resulting from 3 years of unpaid wages. Ringleader Martin Chartier successfully integrated into the Shawnee tribe as a respected diplomat, showing that the mutiny could be viewed as a strategic survival choice. Chartier's life suggests that going wild was a rational escape. Instead of perishing under the demands of early frontier capitalism, these men chose to integrate into the indigenous world. Despite losing his fort, his ship, and his workforce, La Salle's imperial drive remained unbroken. He gathered a fresh expedition and relentlessly pushed further south down the Mississippi River. In 1682, he finally achieved his goal, navigating the length of the river and claiming the territory of Louisiana for France. This map of the claimed territory visualizes the scale of that success. By securing the Mississippi network, La Salle redrew the geopolitical borders of North America. He established the commercial empire he envisioned. But the ashes of Fort Crèvecoeur remain a reminder that the conquest of the Americas was built on the backs of exploited workers.